Hello there, Jose Rodriguez here again. A day doesn't pass by that I do not read a question concerning my prints are too dark. They look darker than my monitor. Wow, if I had a nickel for every time that is asked, I would be in a private island somewhere in the Caribbean. But anyway, that is one of the most common problems. And even for those who are actually doing things properly, setting up the printer driver correctly, using ICC profiles correctly, they've already printed a standard image and the printer does indeed produce it correctly. They still get a dark print and they can't figure out why. And it all boils down to the monitor. This will not be too long and painful. The monitor is too bright, folks. And even though you set it up for correct color using a calibrator, all that is doing is setting up your colors to be reproduced correctly and linearly and neutrally, in other words. So your monitor will not introduce a bias that you will then correct against and really produce a print that has a bias. The print might have been perfect. I've said that a million times before. But one little aspect of image editing, once you begin editing your own images, and this is where the problem sneaks in behind you. When you load your images in Photoshop, in Lightroom, please check that histogram. Regardless of whether your monitor is set a little bit too bright, or a little bit too dark, or perfectly, your eyes have a tendency, in fact it's your brain, not your eyes, to compensate for whatever you are looking at on the monitor. And I have often looked at an image on my screen and it looks great, really nice and snappy and well saturated the way I like them to be. And then I print it and it's dark. Then I go back to my monitor and I realize, you know what? This image really is dark. I should really lighten it to the correct spread on my histogram. Now, that doesn't mean that all images need to be filling up the complete histogram. There are such things as high key images and dark key images. That picture of that model holding that dead chicken against a pure black background, that would be considered sort of like a low key image. And that would then predominantly tend to lean toward the darker side of the histogram. But I know I have a white point in there. So I have already set that, and there are methods to set your white and black points when you're beginning to edit. That way then you just adjust your middle tones and you can make sure that you do have a complete histogram. Even though tones may predominantly be on the darker side or tones may be predominantly on the lighter side or smack in the middle. At least you know that your histogram is complete, and that's what you need to do. Upon back and forth communication with a viewer, and he was gracious enough to allow me to talk about that on this video, it all came down to the histogram. Even though it kind of looked great to his eyes, he realized that the actual image was dark. And so once he adjusted the histogram correctly so that it would have a complete range of tonality, boom, it printed nearly perfect. And remember, you're not going to get perfection. Perfection does not exist. Maybe some things in nature are perfect, but in printing, there's no such thing as perfection. You're going to approximate what you see in your monitor or your display. No way you can actually match it tone for tone. Impossible. So just try to match the screen as well as you can. But remember, and don't lose sleep over this, you're not going to match it 100%. So before I leave, check your histogram. You can do that on the camera, but you got to remember that when the camera shows you that little display of what you just got done shooting, it has converted it to a JPEG, and a very low quality JPEG. And what you see on the histogram, you can adjust up and down on your little button, and load the histogram mode, that may or may not be correct. You will see it correctly in your editing program. So at least kind of get it halfway correct so that it fills the whole histogram in your screen on your camera. Remember also that some cameras allow you to do a white clipping and low clipping mode. And I always try to expose so that I am leaning toward the brighter side of the histogram. It may look like I'm blocking some little areas on highlights, but when shooting raw, you really don't have to worry about that because you can bring that down. But this allows you to make sure that your shadows are full and have full detail. Even though on your camera screen it'll look like you blocked the highlights, remember you're looking at a JPEG, and a crappy JPEG to boot. So don't worry about that. Expose slightly to the brighter side, and then in post-processing bring it down to the correct level and fill that histogram. When you print it, it should print as good as a standard image. Those standard images have been adjusted perfectly so that they will print as good as the printer can possibly print. All right, that is it. My LED just went out. I think I need to recharge the battery. I hope you didn't see any big change in the brightness of the video. So thank you once again. There goes my phone. I gotta see what telemarketer that might be. So thank you once again. Please subscribe, share, and like. And until the next time, happy printing, everybody. Bye-bye.